Hello everyone, welcome to Spark My Muse. I'm your host, Lisa Colon-DeLay. Today is Soul School Lesson 322, Don't Fear the Desert. Today I'm going to be reading from Laura Swan's book called The Forgotten Desert Mothers, Sayings, Lives, and Stories of Early Christian Women, the second edition. As I've been working hard on my second book about desert spirituality, the spiritual fathers and mothers of roughly 300 to 600 CE. There are so many things I've been finding. Not everything can make it into the book, but I thought I would read a little bit from Laura Swan. This is a wonderful book, The Forgotten Desert Mothers. There are so many names in here of women people know nothing about. At the end of the book, on page 200, Swan has a section called The Desert Way. I will be reading from that today. The Desert Way. The Amas teach us not to fear the desert, rather to see the life present there as a gift. Before I had ever heard of the desert dwellers, I had entered a desert season, not understanding that I was there, nor why I was there. I did not realize there was a purpose to my desert sojourn. When I encountered the Amas, they made sense of the desert in my life. Because our initial entrance can be painful and confusing, we fear it and try to escape. We can even fear our very sanity until a wise one unpacks the potential of the desert for us. The desert requires us to explore our crisis of personal meaning. The Amas show us how the work of our desert moves us through integration towards authenticity. The fruit of the desert struggle is abundant life and deep abiding joy. For many of us, the desert is a season often called midlife. This is the time in our life when a cacophony of feelings and unknown forces seem to converge on us. We begin to experience loneliness and depression, even amid loving family and friends. Questions emerge around our life choices and values. Struggles appear endless, hope seems lost, and unfulfilled dreams stare us in the face. We seem to be continually birthing questions with stillborn answers. We become increasingly aware of grief in our life, sometimes quietly present, at other times nearly overwhelming. We grieve broken relationships, changes in our health, unwanted transitions, and lost opportunities. The images of God that we've grown up with and were hardly aware of no longer work. Old understandings of our faith tradition seem stale and irrelevant. Funerals become the time of grieving for far more than the recently deceased. The Amas exhort us to sit in this desert and let it teach us. They understand that this painful stripping must be embraced in order for healing and mature joy to emerge. This desert may initially seem barren, dull, and colorless, but eventually our perceptions start to change. The Amas teach us to sit in the desert, and soon we begin to see the sharp contrasts and the individuality of the desert landscape. The desert eventually becomes, quote, home, unquote, the place and quality of life we come to prefer. Our desert experience provides the space for emptiness and contrast where our values, beliefs, and passions are revealed and refined. We empty ourselves of our own obstacles to God. In the space of this emptiness, we encounter the enormity of God's presence, yet our heart may feel frightened and overwhelmed in the encounter. The Amas teach us that the desert is the place where we are forced to live with our questions, along with the ambiguities and paradoxes of our life. The void begins to have depth and meaning. We hear whispers of a rich yet quiet life. We begin to perceive the subtleties of our spiritual path, and we initiate an inward repatterning toward our truest self. What we believe was stillborn begins to show faint signs of life. The desert way is a journey of hard work, perseverance, and tenacity. The Amas teach us that the desert becomes the place of a mature repentance and conversion towards transformation into true radical freedom. The Amas recognized and respected the diversity of the call. Each of us is invited to let the Ammas be our guide. We will each express this in our own unique way. Amma Syncletica told her followers, "Not all courses are suitable for all people. Each person should have confidence in her own disposition, because for many it is profitable to live in community, and over others it is helpful to withdraw on their own. For just as some plants become more flourishing when they're in a humid location, others are more stable in drier conditions, and so also among humans. Some flourish in the higher places, while others achieve salvation in the lower places." That quote from Amma Syncletica is from The Life of the Blessed Syncletica by Pseudo Athanasius, a translation by Elizabeth Bryson Bonji, Wiffenstock, 2005. I love what Laura Swan says about this desert period of our lives, and I think there's plenty more than just one of those deserts. I know I felt a desert period in my early 20s. I certainly felt one in my mid-30s or so, mid-40s. Maybe it's every 10 years or so for me. And each one presents its own challenges and quandaries and questions, as well as concerns. If you're beginning your life, you might be wondering which path to choose, whether to have a spouse and who that should be. Perhaps the next one has to do with having children, not having children, career paths, and so on, and stepping into a calling. As we approach midlife, into our sights comes questions and thoughts of maybe missed opportunities, having gone the wrong way, or wondering if we've missed out, wondering if we have enough time left, and what if we had chosen a different path. Each season has plenty of its own griefs and questions and anxieties. But the desert mothers teach us to sit in the desert, not escape from it. Sit in the desert and let it teach you. Even though it feels like an abandoned place, a lonely place, it is that place where we are stripped bare of other things. We can drill down, reflect, and grow in intimacy with God and the deepest part of ourselves. Of course, in the show notes, I will add links to find Laura Swan's book and some of her other work, which is really, she speaks about people who have been long forgotten, wise people we should learn from, and I appreciate that very much. This week, I'm going to be turning in half of my work as a draft. This book about desert spirituality will go into the queue eventually and come out in spring of 2026. It's a long wait, really, but in the meantime, I hope to also be creating something that is somewhat of a Lenten companion, using the Desert Fathers as our guides. I've benefited so much from this kind of quiet wisdom. It is short on the cult of personality, and it is long on this abiding guidance and wisdom that's practical and stable and rooted. I find it just terribly refreshing, and I know you will too. So come along with me. A new spiritual challenge will begin for October, and you can find that at patreon.com/sparkmymuse. You can come along with me and join for a spiritual challenge that will take you into a deeper accountability and reflection, and we can go back and forth, if you'd like, with some companionship on that. If you have any questions, please reach out. I can be found on Instagram occasionally, and at Substack, you can leave a comment and I can get back to you. That's sparkmymuse.substack.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until we meet again, I wish you blessing and peace.